Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Steven and this is Northwest Small Batch Brewing. And today's video is going to be a little recap of how I came up with the recipe for the beer that I made last week. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll post a link up in the corner to my DunkelWeizen video, the whole grain to glass video. But this video I thought would be fun, or maybe it would be helpful if I explained to you how I built my recipe. So before I get started, please do me a favor. Only about 20% of people who watch my videos actually subscribe. I really need people to subscribe to my channel. So please, if you'd be willing, hit the subscribe button down at the bottom. Hit the like button if you like the video. And that would be so helpful. I really appreciate it, because without you watching my videos, there'd be no point in doing them. So thanks. Aww. So DunkelWeizen. So I have here like the actual scratch. I don't know, you probably can't read it, but that's fine. I basically wrote down a bunch of little notes as I was coming up with my recipe. So the first thing I did was I decided on the style of beer I wanted. I knew I wanted a DunkelWeizen. And so I went out to brewersassociation.org, and they have on that website, I don't know, the past maybe 10 years or so, something like that, worth of beer styles. Every year they give an updated beer style list, and it's like 150 or so beers, and they update it every year on what kind of gravity numbers each style should have and all this other information. So that's the jumping off point. Figure out what style of beer you want to make, and then go to Brewers Association. You can download the PDFs if you want of each year. I just picked the most current year. So I was looking at DunkelWeizen. It told me stuff like the original gravity needed to be between 1048 and 1056. I'm sorry, the gravity numbers, and that the ABV should be between 4.8 and 5.4%, and that the IBU bitterness should be between 10 and 15. All right, and I think that's mostly it. I can't remember if it talked about the grain. It doesn't usually talk about the grain. So that gives you an idea, first of all, where to start. Then you have a couple of options. You could search for recipes and then sort of see if they fit into that, correct guideline for the type of beer. If you search the internet for Google, that's probably going to be the least effective, because you have no idea who's written what and whether it's accurate or a good recipe. It'd be better to go to like Brewer's Friend or I can't think of the other two because I use Brewer's Friend, but there's two other big sites where you can do recipe building stuff. I think Grainfather maybe is one of them, or Brewfather or something like that. Anyway, there's a couple of them, but those sites, especially if you subscribe to one, gives you access to their recipes, and then they're a little bit more vetted because they're from actual homebrewers, but you're still it's not going to be like a guarantee, right? Because like even on Brewer's Friend, anybody can write their recipe any way they want, and it's nothing vetted about it, and you don't even know if they've even ever brewed it or not. So it can be a little hazy. I almost think it's better to go to YouTube and go to a channel that you know is pretty solid. If we're talking about beer, I would say, Clyhammer is pretty good, although they do some variations on beers. So what you could do is look at what they've done and then take away the variation. Like if they did some kind of weird addition to something, just get rid of the addition and see what they use for like hops and grain and stuff and ratios. Martin over at the Homebrew Challenge is great because he did like 99 beers in 99 weeks, and his always seemed to be really well thought out and meet the appropriate guidelines. His are really good go-to. The Apartment Brewer does good stuff. So just look around YouTube channels, and you'll find if they did a full grain to glass, then you can even see whether or not they liked it at the end and if they would have changed anything. So let's get moving on from there. So I have this book called Designing Great Beers, and The only thing I don't like about it is it's very dry. It's just way too detailed and way too dry a read. It's very technical. But the weird thing is that it does not include any Belgian style beers, which is bizarre and weird. And I probably wouldn't have bought it if I knew that at the time. That being said, it does have DunkelWeizen, and so I was able to find out from this book that there should be at least 50%. They recommended 55% wheat for DunkelWeizen, and then they gave a bunch of examples of DunkelWeizens that had won awards and what kind of malt they use at what percentages. And then they also said what kind of hops they use, which were basically noble hops in this case. We're talking about like Hallertau or Saaz were the most common. And then I was able to jump off from there. So what I did is I said, okay, well, if I'm starting with 12 pounds of grain, because that's my general feeling is around when you're doing about a 5.5 gallon batch, you need about 12 pounds of grain, give or take. And then I just figured, okay, what's 55% of 12 pounds? Well, it's 6.6 pounds. Great. I'm going to plug in, on the Brewer's Friend Recipe Builder, 6.6 pounds of Great Western white wheat. And then I want to do, I was going to split it. I want to do 30% Munich and 2-row, but split it. But I decided at the last minute, I was just going to do Munich because I love Munich malt. I love Munich, the flavor. And it's a German beer. So I decided to go full Munich. So 30% Munich, which was like 3.6 pounds, I believe. I can't really read my handwriting. And then the rest of it, the like adjunct malts, if you will, I did 15%. There's 3 of them, so I split the 15% into 5% each. So 5% caramel 10, which was like 0.6 pounds, a little over half a pound. 5% chocolate malt and 5% special B. And then I decided at the last minute that I forgot to put it in, but I don't really count it because it doesn't really give any kind of, it doesn't give sugar, so it's not going to change your gravity number. All it does is add mouthfeel, and it helps with your head retention and body of your beer, and that's carapils. So I did add about 5% carapils to the malt, the grist altogether. So that's how I came up with the fermentables. I decided to go with Hallertau because that seemed to be the most common hop. 1% Hallertau gave me about a 13.3 IBU. Remember, by the guidelines, it has to be between 10 and 15 IBU bitterness. Boom, right? That fits right in. Other than that, gelatin and Werflock I decided to do because most of the examples I could find looked like the beers were pretty clear. So I decided to try to see if I could clear the beer a little bit. And last but not least, I do dry yeast, so I just looked up 2 kinds of yeast that would be good for DunkelWeizen. There were 2 options that I looked at, Safel WBO6 and Lalbrew Classic Wheat Ale Yeast were the 2 options, and either one would have been fine for this particular beer. And then, of course, in the book, it also told me that the most common mashing temperature was 154 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's what I decided to do. And it even looks like it gave me information about pitching the yeast to pitch it low at like 54 Fahrenheit and then ferment around 64, 65 Fahrenheit. I did decide to pressure ferment because these types of beers, again, I read in the book, tend to have esters that can create like a banana flavor, and also you can get like clove flavors from it. So I didn't, and it's okay to have a little bit of that, but you don't want it to be overdone. So I decided to pressure ferment to kind of keep that in check. That's how I came up with the recipe. So hopefully that helps, gives you a jumping off point on how to come up with recipes if you want to try to write your own. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. That's all I had for you. I know I ran real quick through this, but trying to keep it short for you. So I'll see you again in a week for another video. So until then, cheers and hey, happy brewing.